All right. Welcome to the Misogi Mission Podcast. My name is Rob Olson, your host, former Navy SEAL, gym owner, entrepreneur. And the goal of this podcast is to educate, entertain, and inspire you, our listeners, our fellow dads, to start doing some epic shit. All right. We have Brian Barnicle on today, a fellow entrepreneur father, and he went through a Misogi that he's going to fill us in on. So, Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, fill us in. Give us your background first. Family life, entrepreneur life, and then we'll talk Misogi.
So I grew up here in Connecticut in Newington. Big family, Irish family. I have one of 15 cousins on my dad's side. And how my background ties in the Misogi world is I grew up in the Scouts, Cub Scouts, all the way up to Eagle Scout, and cousins in there too. And so my dad would take us on a lot of outdoor adventures that would push our limits beyond what I ever thought I was capable of. That's really what got me into this whole pushing for something greater than you would think you're capable of.
Yeah, I love it. So you have a little background in it, which definitely hear about more. What's your family life and how old are you?
So I just turned 37 yesterday.
Nice. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have an almost 3-year-old daughter. She'll be 3 in May. And my girlfriend owns and runs a spa in West Hartford, the Victorian Day Spa. And she's a registered dietitian. So very focused on the health side of things. And we bonded over natural remedies and healthy food and all that good stuff. So we're both entrepreneurs, balancing raising our daughter at home. So it's the modern lifestyle.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to talk about balance at some point because that's an important facet of being a dad and someone that engages in these, growth opportunities that we call Misogis. So I know you had mentioned to me that you had done, was it Yosemite hike?
Yep.
So how far did you go?
70 miles.
And when was this?
This was, so I've done it a few times. The most recent was 2011, so this is where it started with the Boy Scouts. When my dad joined the troop, they used to just go to these things called jamborees, which is just a bunch of scouts getting together, nerding out and building things. And he wanted to do something a little more adventurous with that time and money. So he got our troop to do what they call high adventure trips. And you have to do 50 miles of backpacking continuously and carry all your own gear and stuff. And so my brother and cousin and the scouts did one when I was 11. So that's when I first went out to Yosemite. And then a few years later, when I was 14, I did my first one. But at that time, I was your typical overweight American fat boy. And I was like 5'2", almost 190, not healthy. And going from that to backpacking 70 miles. And the last day of the hike, we did 15 miles and we summited Half Dome that day. And I genuinely thought I was going to die. We did over 6,000 feet of elevation. I was like, leave me on the trail. I'll finish tomorrow. This is happening. And after that summer, coming back, I lost 40 pounds because I did that high adventure trip. And then I came back and I started running 9 miles every day. I was like, if I could hike 50 miles with a backpack or 10 miles a day with a backpack, I could run 9 miles a day with nothing.
Wow, that's amazing. So how old were you at this time?
14, 15.
And so when you did the Yosemite trip, how many people did you go with?
I think there were 12 of us.
So how many scouts and then how many adults were there? Do you remember?
Four adults and 8 to 10 scouts.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was, like I said, life-changing. I joined the cross-country team freshman year just because I had friends and family on it, and I ran a 43-minute 5K run walk, basically.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, I broke the 19-minute mark and made varsity.
I ran cross-country as well, and I started my sophomore year, I did it, and I was terrible. I probably had a 30-something minute 5K. And then it took me 3 years to learn how to push myself to that discomfort in order to make progress. And I think by the time I finished senior year, I wasn't on varsity the whole time, but I had at least done a couple races there. So to recap, you did Yosemite. And then after that, you started running 9 miles a day. And then that took you to the cross country team in high school from when you went to a 43-minute 5K to how fast? 19 minute?
Yeah, 19-minute.
So that's like a 6-something minute mile pace.
Yeah.
Just cooking.
Yeah. From being winded doing stairs 2 years before.
Dude, that's incredible. So it's like the ultimate transformation story.
Yeah. It never went back. But my
And so
dad,
tell us more. Go ahead.
Yeah, he pushed us to do these things from a young age. He signed us up for a polar bear swim, a quarter-mile polar bear swim when I was like 10 years old. And we had survival training in the Boy Scouts where you had to spend 2 nights overnight by yourself, build your own shelter, fire. So he was always into challenging himself. Once he hit a certain age, he was feeling a little soft. And then he was in the Air Force. And
Ask on his background. So Air Force guy?
Yep.
What did he do in the Air Force?
So he was a linguist and he would fly around in C-130s and listen to intercoms and more of the mental side, but he appreciated the physical.
So did he have a similar, like, starting getting soft, felt things like degrading and slipping into mediocrity changed in him? And he was like, I need to get my life back in gear, start doing these things. And then he started sharing those experiences with you, his kids.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. He's 73 now. Still got a 6-pack.
Have you ever told him about what you just told me on how transformative this all?
We talked about it because for my 18th birthday, graduating high school, it was his 66th birthday. And it was like to celebrate. We both went back to Yosemite and climbed a 14,000 foot peak. I got like a nice picture of him holding a flag on top. Yeah. But we talked about on that trip, and one of the craziest parts of the trip, we hiked up to this glacial lake covered in snow, and we were watching this iceberg float across the water, and there was a tree sitting on it. And we were sitting there for an hour having lunch. I was like, I wonder when that tree is going to sink or fall into the water. It just looks so precarious. As soon as I finished the sentence, the ice cracked. You hear, and the tree just rolls and sinks into the water.
Wow, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, we both got a full arm, full goosebumps. What just happened? But it was like one of those, you're on the right path kind of thing. Keep doing these adventures.
That's awesome. So where in your life are you experiencing Misogis now? How are you pushing yourself?
So now it's more in the entrepreneurial side and the regenerative landscaping agriculture. It's more of a mission than a business. And so like I've had 5 meetings the last 5 days with like nonprofit. Yesterday, a 4-hour meeting for my birthday. This like woman is taking me under her wing and just trying to do something big and grand to actually make a difference. And it gives me that kind of fuel and passion. And it takes that a level of focus and drive. Like when you're tired, you just want to go to bed till now I'm going to go write a grant proposal. I'm going to go do this and organizing events, and the actual physicality of going and removing invasive plants and natives. It's go do that for 12 hours for 4 days and you'll feel it.
That's super cool. So you're taking this in kind of a different direction. So you're using the experience with Misogis and, the growth mindset from those kind of fuel the entrepreneurial side and
the mission.
Dig in deep in the mission. Yeah, I love that.
And I looked at Misogi more from the like traditional sense, like the way that I have approached it throughout my life once I got a little older. And they see it as like a purification ritual in nature. They sit under the waterfall and meditate and all that. So there are like 3 periods in my life where like I had been living in a city with my photography business, like contracts with like schools, and then just being like, I need to just reset and refocus my mind. And I went and lived off grid for 3 years.
Wow. Cool.
And so just went to the woods, worked on a farm, and cooked over a fire for 6 months straight, just reconnected with nature because that's what got me into photography in the first place. And then I went back to the city and worked for a corporation. And then 3 years later, I went to the Redwoods in Humboldt and lived off grid again. And that's more, it's the getting back to nature and purifying the everyday life that we get caught up in.
I feel you there.
Yeah.
So where are you now in the cycle between living off grid and living in the city?
3 years into living in Hartford, looking for some land.
Nice. That's awesome. So now you have a 3-year-old daughter, right?
Mhm.
How have you either taught or how are you going to teach, because she's still young, this concept of misogis and growth opportunities and challenging yourself and that stuff?
I'm blessed that she is a aggressively independent child. We had her potty trained by 6 months old.
No, it's got to be a record.
Yeah. I didn't change a shitty diaper after 6 months.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And she's already starting to figure out how to write letters. She knows her whole alphabet. So like we embrace the Montessori type school.
Mhm.
And like we have everything set up at home at her level, her own like cooking station. She can get her own snacks, like all that kind of stuff. And pushing her that there's no limitation on what you can do. It's really what do you want to do, and not following that traditional path. Even though I did go to school, get your degree, do this, and I just did that to placate my expectations when it wasn't really what was calling me, and I am not gonna force that upon her.
1,000%, man. I went to a good high school and then, you follow the path. And so I went to college. I was doing biomedical engineering, set up for a good future, the whole bit. And then I did a internship at a pharmaceutical company from 9 to 5. And I was like, nope,
Yeah.
this is not for me. The whole time in college, I had been telling my parents, like, I want to do ROTC. Like, I want to join the military. It's like when I'm interested, it's what I want to do. And they were always like, no, like, we'll pay for college. And it wasn't like they had a bunch of money, but like, they were like, we're going to pay for college. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
And finally, after I did that internship, I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I put down, I
Yeah.
dropped out against everybody's wishes. I did 3 years out of a 5-year program. So like I was almost there, but I was like, this isn't what I want for my life. So I enlisted in the Navy and I went after my childhood dream of being a Navy SEAL, which I
Nice.
did.
That's awesome.
And then I did that. Yeah, thanks. And then I did that for 6 years and I got out and I opened a gym and now I'm just living the entrepreneurial lifestyle of out my vision,
Exactly.
I know that's not everybody's calling, but I think, your mindset of fueling unlimited potential and the dream. It's like
Yes.
so many people try to tamper down other people's dreams because of, I'll say, their own insecurities or own beliefs. But I firmly believe anybody can do anything that they want.
100. Everything's that's been done has been done by somebody.
So, raising kids, obviously, parents want their best for the kids and we want them to do what they want. But this idea of misogis and races and, misogi's been modernized to be like
Yeah.
races, outdoor adventures, stuff like that. So it's like, I had my now 13-year-old son, I think it was 2 years ago. He did his first 5K. So he's 11.
Nice.
And it was a challenge for him. Like it was his misogi at the time. But like had to push his limits and learn that, discomfort is really just growth.
Growth.
That's what
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
And so
That's the
lesson-
age that I got into it. It's perfect that you're doing that.
it's not easy because society tends to push the other direction.
They want workers.
They want workers. They want conformity. It's like life these days is, from a grandiose perspective, life is getting easier. You can
Yes.
order DoorDash and have food brought to your house, where even just 100 years ago, you had to grow it or you had to go out and kill it.
Yeah.
And so it's like life is getting easier. And so we have to be meaningful about how we add discomfort back in to
Well, that's
harden
why
ourselves and grow.
that's why when I went off grid, I didn't just initially buy a propane stove and the kitchen. I was like, I'm going off grid, like I'm cooking over a fire.
So tell me about that. Did you go by yourself or who went with you?
No, so I was in Santa Barbara. I graduated and I partnered in a portrait photography business. So I had contracts with 9 local schools. We were doing all the yearbooks, headshots, sports teams, and burned myself out. And I was talking with a friend. I was like, I'd love to just go like work with plants, live off grid, live in the mountains. That's what I do in my free time. And I own a weed farm and the manager's terrible. And so he's like, if you want it, it's yours. And so I had work that could also like fund my life, but I could be off grid in the woods, not have to answer to anybody, all in my own schedule, wake with the sunrise. It was
What was that like?
Dude.
You can see this. So if you're listening to this, you can't see his face, but his smile is from ear to ear about how good it was.
Yeah. Another transformative experience. I got so connected with the plants and the nature. Like when I would water every night, you stir up the bugs in the grass. I had a swarm of dragonflies every night that would come in and surround me and eat all the bugs out of the water. Like I was just so in tune with the cycles of actual life that like the anxiety, the stress, all that, what am I supposed to be doing wasn't there. Like I got rid of my cell phone. Like I fully went for it.
How did that feel, getting rid of your cell phone?
I loved it. Parents hated it. Everyone, if they had to contact me, they had to call my girlfriend at the time.
That's cool. Send you a letter.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So like bringing it back. So one thing that I can relate to is I haven't lived like that for any extended period of time. Like I did some survival training up in Alaska. So we did it for like a couple of weeks, but nothing like super long term. But like even now in modern society, something that I try to do at least most of the year is I try to get outside to see the sunrise most mornings. And then given the time of year, I try to see the sunset too, because I think something that we've lost with modern living is the sun actually gives us hormonal benefits. And like it makes you, so like when you see the sun rise, that actually sets you up for having a better night's sleep that night. And it sets your melatonin sleeps.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like this natural living makes you feel so much better. And so there's this idea of, I don't know if balance is a thing or not, but bringing nature in to whatever level we can is extremely beneficial. So I'm on board with you there.
Yeah, there's so much science behind it now. Like even people go spend 3 days in the woods and they have a month of residual effects. And so that's why this whole edible, perennial, like lush landscaping design stuff that I've gotten into is like your backyard could be a healing environment mentally, and it can feed you and it can heal the plant at the same time. Like this abundant resource that we're just neglecting and growing some grass on.
It's funny. I've had the same mindset or, the same thought the last like 2 years is like, I've got, maybe almost 1.5, 2 acres, but we have some chickens I'm looking at in the backyard. But then the rest of it is like, it's nice grass. It's like, the quintessential suburban home with a nice grass backyard. And I take a lot of pride in having nice grass. And, 5 years ago, I'd be putting all pesticides down, the lawn stuff. And then it's been transitioning to completely organic and pesticide free. And now where my mind is going is kind of where I think you are of like, got all this space. Like, yeah, I want the kids to be able to run around and play baseball, but like, let's put a garden out there. Let's grow some food. Like, let's do some things.
That changes your kids' relationship with food. I installed one last year for another Dads and Business member, Ryan. And he said his most rewarding day of the year was when he would got home with his kids and they ran over and picked fresh strawberries.
Awesome. I can picture that. That's awesome.
And he sent me, he's like 70 pictures, like they have like bags of peaches. It's just it's like the world should be abundant.
Completely agree. It's like we got the chickens in part because we wanted to have the better nutrients from the eggs by controlling their feed and letting them free range in our backyard and all that stuff. But then what it's kind of transformed to is kind of like what you're saying is where they have more respect for the food supply because the kids go out and they collect the eggs. It's part of their chore. They take care of the chicken coop. They feed them. They water them. They do all the things. So it's like, I feel like that was a good stepping stone.
Yeah.
Hopefully this year we can get some gardens going and taking care of those. I'll be honest, we haven't had good luck with gardens in the past. So maybe we'll have to call you in the spring.
Yeah. It's all about the soil health. It's like the microbiome in your gut. It's like most people overlook the microbiome in the soil. And I'm certified in Korean natural farming, which is all about finding healthy soil, taking that microbiome, breeding it into larger amounts and reintroducing it into degraded areas.
Mm.
And once you set up that foundation, it's like plug and play.
So let me ask you this. If you put pesticides in the ground, how long do they stay?
It depends on the pesticide and it depends on the bacteria and things. So the stuff that I'm talking about, the Korean national farming, is used in soil remediation because they can break down the chemicals and heavy metals in the soil. So if you leave it untouched, maybe 5-7 years. If you do interventions, 2 years.
Oh, cool. That's super interesting. So looking forward, so you're 37 years old now, you have a 3-year-old daughter. What do you think you're going to use the Misogi mindset for in the upcoming years?
Good question. My most recent one that I did was like, I used to be big into rock climbing when I was out in California, and I like got to a certain level, started doing multi-pitch stuff, and then got away from that. So when I moved out here, I joined a rock climbing gym. I was like, I want to get back to climbing at the level I was when I was like 25. And so within 4 months, I got there. And then I was like, oh, that happened faster than I was expecting. So I want to get back into, I think, outdoor climbing, like, because once I got to like hitting the like certain levels of the gym, it just lost the specialness. I don't know what to call it, but just doing more of those outdoor adventure push type things. I'm not so much big into the ultra long distance stuff anymore, like running and all that, but backpacking, I'd love to do another big backpacking trip with my daughter now that she's a little older, and some stuff like that. But it's really, I don't have the mental capacity until I feel like I've accomplished this food forest, food system dream that I'm on. And so that's where all of my focus, all of my energy is going to.
So you mentioned you have a love for this new project. Do you think love is a necessary component to conquering a Misogi? Or can you do a Misogi type event, challenge, project without loving it?
I think it's a key component. I think because the drive has to be beyond yourself. If you're doing something, a mission or something great, the mission isn't I'm the best. It's like, I want to level up so I can do greater things. With this, I'm not doing it because I want to be the best gardener. I'm doing it because it needs to be done and I'm uniquely positioned to do it. So it's like a calling beyond me. And I feel like that's why I have the drive and the energy and the resilience to stay up late and work on this stuff when I could be sitting watching TV. If I didn't love it, I would be watching TV or whatever. I don't watch
What
TV.
advice would you have for a beginner who's looking to get into something as a growth opportunity to kind of get out of that mediocrity and try to improve themselves, but they don't love anything yet?
It's what do you do when you're avoiding this thing you should be doing? And that's what it was for me. I would go out in nature, I'd go rock climb. I needed to be like editing photos or reaching out to clients. I was like, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go to my garden. And it's like the stuff that calls you away from the things I tried to cleanse myself of the modern world. And if you don't have those, start letting that happen, like following your instincts and take a year to say yes. Like I did that when I was like graduating from school. Any opportunity, any invitation, I just said yes. I was like, let's just expand my horizons. And so I just would do the most random things, go party in the desert. And it's just like this. And it opened my eyes a lot.
So that's been actually a theme that's popped up on every one of these podcasts that I've done so far, is saying yes. And the idea seems to be that we not only limit ourselves to what we're capable of, but we self-impose so many impediments to these future ideas that we say no way too easily.
Oh yeah. That's right. It's like a gut reaction. Yeah.
That's right. The visceral's no. No, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that. No, that's too hard. No, that's too big. And it's like the people that are on these podcasts and people that have done these Misogi things, they have a habit of saying yes, even to big things. So for me, for example, I tend to sign up for these big races, whether it's an ultra or marathon or whatever, and I don't even really think about it. It's
Hmm.
like I'll have like I'll call it a calling in my head of like an itch or a yearning to like do something. And then, I'll spend maybe a day or two like browsing on the internet, seeing what's out there. And then before you know it, within 48 hours, like I'm usually signed up for one of these things. But I don't think about everything
The
that needs to
why
happen
now? Yeah.
between now and then. And it's like typically the event will be like 9 months away. And I don't think about all the runs that have to happen, all the nutrition I have to learn, all the stretching and recovery, because the enormity of it is paralyzing.
Hmm.
Right? But there's
Hmm.
something to be said about just starting by saying yes and then going down the path, because the path will expose the next step.
Yes. And what you're doing is like creating like excited accountability. Like you have a goal and a target in the future. So you have something to work towards that gives you that kind of, oh, I better show up or it's not going to happen. Whereas if you just think about it and don't say yes, you're just going to keep thinking about it. And yeah.
Yep. Rumination. Too many people ruminate and they just fail to take action. And there's something else that you said that I really liked, and it was letting things happen. And I also feel like one of the problems in modern society is that people are often busy for busy's sake, and nothing is going to happen when you're busy. You know what I mean? It's like the ideas always come to me when I'm free of distraction, free of notifications, free of to-do lists. It's like you said, when you get out in nature and you remove yourself from these devices and from the external inputs, your brain is free to create,
Mhm.
and it usually leads you in the direction that you need to go. But like you can't hear your own thoughts when you're constantly bombarded by all this noise in modern society.
Yeah. And there's this external expectations we put on ourselves that we think people expect of us, even if they don't. Like I was such a people pleaser, like growing up, and like saying no to these things that people aren't even asking me of and saying yes to like opportunities that are coming my way was a big shift. And like I said, I did that in my early 20s, the yes thing. And then I fell back into the cycle of like when I was living in San Francisco, I got back into the corporate world. I was like doing corporate photography stuff, working for a big company. And so I went on another mental exploration. I joined this men's group. And one of the coolest activities in it is we had to spend 1 week living as the 12 different archetypes. And so whatever that like personality or type of person would do or respond to that situation, like you had to think of it through that lens. So I had a little
Yeah.
card and be like, someone who's more aggressive, you know, than me, like the more like your atypical military type, like, you know, person, like a Neil Conlon. How do you do it? Or like someone who's like the exact opposite of me. So it put me in the perspective and lens of I'm reacting through these preconceived expectations of my life when I could be making any decision. And that was like such a freeing experiment. And like I'd become introverted in the city because San Francisco is not it was like such a techie bro world while I was living there. And everyone's like wanted to get something of you. But then like I just started having fun again because I didn't have to just be me and worry about what people were thinking. And I was just like, it was,
I
and that was
love
like a
that.
cleansing experience in itself.
Yeah. I mean, I think being authentic is just a cleansing experience because, like I said, so many people are living life with either a fake lens through their eyes of like how they see the world, or projecting themselves as different version of themselves because they're afraid to be them.
Mhm. Yeah, especially being in a city where I didn't know, like, hardly anyone. Like, I had just moved there without knowing anyone, so I could be anybody. And I've moved so many times and reinvented myself, new networks, new communities. So it's also, I think, not everyone has that opportunity or ability with their type of work, but that itself was like a challenge. Was rebuild yourself and see who you are when you're not around your friend groups or your networks that you already have. And then you can be like exactly who you want to be.
I love that. I mean, there's definitely power in moving and starting over again. And it's like, at least in the gym world, one of the common sayings is if you want to be a certain type of person, join an environment where they exhibit the traits that you want to have. So, like, if you want to be more fit, you join a gym that has fit people in it because you will absorb their
Hmm.
kind of personality traits and you will adopt their behaviors. And so you can say the same thing about any facet of life, like group that you want to join or be or whatever, but like there is choice in that
Yes.
of
Yeah.
where do we go?
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm choosing. I've been just like, I'm going to this nonprofit group that's a land conservancy. I'm just going to their meeting just because I can. And now they're like wanting me to lead projects for them to do invasive removals and just showing up. Like people are excited. If you're excited about what they're excited about, they're happy you're there.
Just showing up is half the battle. I mean, we talk about that all the time. It's like, even, and I go back to the gym space because that's my natural, area. But like, if you just make the decision to go, that is the win. Once you're there, things naturally unfold and they
Yeah.
happen. And it's much easier than you think. But like, it's the
Yeah.
decision
Yeah.
between your years of, okay, I'm going to go to the gym right now. It's going to happen. It's like, that's the hard thing. Once you're there, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's super cool. I like that awareness. Anything else on your mind?
Let's see if I wrote anything down. I guess, yeah, just my misogi of today is really pushing these land conservancies that have this land to do something with it instead of it just sitting there because none of these forests that we have in this area are natural forests. They're all second, third cut forests that have now grown back super thick. They don't have the diversity and just lift that fear that they have of hurting nature and being like, every forest has been managed for thousands of years. Like the Native Americans, when we came here, they could drive a horse and carriage through the forest because they had controlled burns, so they would grow the right food trees to provide for the wildlife that they harvested. We could be. I ate venison all winter. If we were managing our forests, we could be providing enough food that we could be harvesting wild meat to feed people instead of these corn-fed factory farms that are destroying the planet. We have everything at our fingertips. We're just not taking action. And so I'm just take action, push the envelope, push these organizations, get the money. That's why I'm working with all these nonprofit leaders. The money is there. Connecticut's a rich state,
Right.
and there's a lot of it's going to bad places, corruption. Like it's like Steve Irwin said, "Give me all the money so I can protect all the land."
Dude, that's awesome. I can't wait to see where you are in a couple of years. I feel like huge things are coming for you.
Thank you.
If people want to learn more about what you're doing, how do they reach you or how do they find out what you're up to?
So my website is growwild.co, and that's for all my regenerative edible landscaping. And then my photography is brianbarnicle.com, BrianBarnicle.com.
And do you work with people just in the Connecticut area or do you do remote things as well?
I do remote things like consulting and stuff. And I installed some food forests out in the West Coast and then talk with them online about maintenance and things like that.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you being on today, Brian. It's super inspiring to hear your story. Like I said, I can't wait to see where you go. And to our listeners, make sure you share this podcast with someone else who you think can use some motivation, education, and inspiration. And we'll catch you next time.
Awesome.